How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Batman Ghost Stories. This is the third volume of the James Tynion run and includes Batman 101 through 105, as well as the fifth Batman annual and a story from Batman 1027. And overall, I thought this was a pretty cool book. I will say, basically, I think Batman's a really cool comic character, but I wasn't super familiar with what was going on currently. I had fallen off of the book a little bit, and I decided to try to get caught up and see what's going on in the world of comics now. And I went to a bunch of different of my brick and mortar stores, used stores, a comic shop, a bookshop, and try to gauge just what all they had. And this is basically as far back as I could go. The Joker War happened right before this, but that was kind of split off into multiple books and I couldn't quite find all of it. So I decided to start here. And overall, I thought this was a pretty cool story. There is a little bit with getting on your feet in that first issue, and I guess I should explain. Basically, we have four things in here. Batman 101 is its own standalone story, and it's basically cleaning up after the Joker War and establishing Batman's new status quo. This really should have been an epilogue for the Joker War books, because putting it right at the beginning of this book, it really is a more business-like, here's what goes here, here's what goes here, and it's not the most exciting thing to start off a new volume with. And if you haven't read Joker War, like I haven't yet, I do plan on it, it basically is a bunch of, oh, okay, I guess that's what's happening now. So 101 is a little bit of a rough place to start. Again, should have been an epilogue for the Joker War books. But when we get into it, 102 to 105, that's the Ghostmaker story where the book gets its name. And I do want to say, sadly, this isn't really a horror book. Ghostmaker was one of Batman's old friends and rivals. He was another kid traveling the earth when Bruce was, talking to all the masters and trying to become the best crime fighter he could be. The two went their own separate ways, Ghostmaker believing in killing and believing in being much more obsessive about the task, and they basically had a deal to stand out of each other's way for a while. But when Batman appears weakened, Ghostmaker is making his play for the city. That's a pretty cool story. I like the idea that they were old friends and that a rival is like the closest thing Bruce could really have to a friend. That's a cool idea, and I do like the characters' history with one another. That being said, 202, 3, 4, 5, it's only a 4-issue plot arc, and in turn it's really quick. I think it basically happens over the course of 1 or 2 days. It definitely does feel like a transitional story, a story that would happen after a really big event like Joker War, so you don't want to be too exhausting, right? But overall, I really did like the rivalry, a really good plot between the two characters, and I thought it was cool. The other stuff in here, Batman Annual, is the origin story for this Clown Hunter character that was in the last plot arc. We finally get to find out where exactly he came from. He's basically a young kid who, when Joker kills his parents, vows to take revenge on all crime. Again, kind of like Batman, but he's a street punk character, and he is going to be violent and trying to kill people. And we finally get his origin story. I feel it is a little late in the book, but it's still cool, and it does got a different, more street punk art style to go with that character, and also a good check-in on Dr. Tompkins as well. And then a story featuring Deadman from 1027, which I think is also called something like Ghost Stories or something like that. And I kind of feel like that was just thrown in because A, it was written by Tinyon, and B, it fits the title, even though it really, as far as plot goes, doesn't match. But a good little whatever, why not throw this in? Although if you just buy 1027, you can get all of it. But overall, a good rivalry book. I really do love the hardcover presentation here, and I think this is a fun Batman story. I went around when I was preparing to read this run, and I was grabbing as much as I could of the new Batman, so I do hope to cover more Batman books very, very soon. But yeah, I feel like this is a good place for me to start doing this stuff. Anyway, if you guys want a deeper analysis, if you want to see this physical release, as well as a little bit of the art and a little bit about the stories, again, no major spoilers, I'm going to switch to the close-up camera. We can take a closer look at this book and what exactly is inside. So without further ado, to the close-up camera. Alright, here we are inside the castle taking a closer look at Batman Ghost Stories. And I do want to say, I do really love nice hardcover editions, and this is a hardcover with its own dust jacket and everything. Let's bring it closer to the camera. Batman logo with the purple behind it, the title Ghost Stories, James Tynion IV as the writer, and a bunch of artists. More on that in a minute, but a bunch of artists did work on this. And then we get this picture of Batman looming over the city, and this is the cover of Batman number 101. The spine here, we note the Batman title, the picture from the cover, Ghost Stories, the credits, and the DC logo. Now, what is missing here is there's actually no number on this version of the run, which I did think was kind of interesting, but then I thought about it, and maybe this is for the best, because comics and continuity and crossovers with different books, inevitably the number system gets a little messed up, you know? For example, there's a big event, and then there's a tie-in book, and, you know, it's like you have the saga version of the book instead of the numbered version, and then you have the tie-in book that's like the Detective Comics one that now has to get pulled out of Detective Comics and placed with that line. Yeah, I'm, in retrospect, kind of glad they didn't do numbers, but the information is printed on the back, so it's not on the spine, but it says Volume 3 here, and it tells you quite clearly right here what it collects, which I do like, especially because sometimes when they're new, these things are shrink-wrapped. I like seeing it here on the outside, plain and clearly, rather than reading through the information on the inside. Collects Batman 101 through 105, Batman Annual number 5, and a special story from Detective Comics 1027. And here we get a nice cover, Batman, Ghostmaker, and Clown Hunter, and the battle for Gotham City's soul begins. Now, if we crack open the book, I guess I should point out there is a cover gallery in the back, and the cover gallery, you get all these nice alternative covers from the artist Francesco Mattina, and then we get a few more alternates towards the back. There's one for each of those from 1 through 5. There's the alternate for the annual, but then there's a second, a 1 in 25 alternate for 105 that are these character portraits. And if we take a look at the dust jacket, there's the character portrait for Batman, and then the character portrait for Ghost Hunter that are going to be on the dust jacket flaps here. Then if we take the dust jacket off, we get a portrait of Batman, a really nice painting, and there's Grifter, who's in the story for just a little bit, but if we flip back to that alternate cover gallery, This is actually the 101 alternate, but blown up to get their faces. One thing I do want to say, though, there is sadly only the DC logo on the spine. I wish it had all the information, or maybe, if we don't want to do any, make it completely virgin and don't put the DC logo on it. But I don't know. Personally, I like information on the spines, so I can tell what it is from the bookshelf. Anyway, nice in papers. Is a little hard to see on camera. Purple Gotham City with bats, of course. And title page, again, one of the covers for the books. And after that, we do get the credits. Nice double page credit splash. Batman, Ghost Stories, and then these little boxes at the bottom are all your credits, and we can see James Tynion IV is the writer. Here's 3 of the pencilers, and then look at that box afterwards. A bunch more pencilers. Yeah, there's a ton of artists here. We'll get more on that in a second, but I do want to show you the format. Basically, you get a cover. This is the cover to 101. Flip the cover over, you'll get the end papers, but much brighter. Chapter and cover artist. So that's the formula there. I do wish this doesn't have page numbers, so in turn we don't have a table of contents either. That does bug me, but at the same time, what are you gonna do about that? But anyway, in regards to the book having so many artists, I guess here's a good example from Chapter 3. James Tynion IV is the writer, and then we get 4 different artists listed, which is a pretty crazy number. But we can see, like, here's the primary art, but then there's another scene that takes place somewhere else with Oracle and Nightwing, and we can see the art is different, but it's not as distracting because it's a scene with different characters with an intentionally different tone, and it does help show you visually that you're somewhere else. And then we get a flashback sequence to when Nightwing was the first Robin, and we can see the artwork again looks different. So I like that, you know, if you have to use extra pencilers and artists to get you to the places you need to be in a timely manner, dividing up the work smartly so the scenes stand out from one another, and they're all still pretty good artists, so, you know, it works pretty good that way. And quite obviously, the art in the annual and the detective comic story will be very different, but those are their own stories. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the stories that are collected in this book. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I want you guys to have a basic idea as to what each one's about, show you guys the stories and the art, and I'll be going over each of the 4 stories that are in here, so if you want to, you know, jump around, we'll be covering, you know, essentially 4 sections. This might get a little long. Anyway, we open up with a nice shot of Gotham City, and this is After the Laughter, which is an epilogue to Joker War, and this is Batman 101, so this is kind of its own story. But Batman is talking about the good old days, back when stuff worked, and we get a flashback to him with one of the Robins that looks like Tim Drake there. But we see that he's talking with Catwoman, and he is dealing with the aftermath of the Joker War. We cut to the past and see him in a fight with Grifter, and it turns out the only reason he's in a fight with Grifter is he wants to see Lucius Fox, and Grifter has hired him as a bodyguard, and even though he really shouldn't have fought him, Grifter just wanted to do that. Grifter's a really a fun character that doesn't get used too often. I think he was from, what was it called, Wildstorm? It was a line of comics that DC purchased, and every now and then they try to do something with the characters. But Lucius Fox isn't doing too great. He apparently got poisoned, and now he feels kind of sickly, and apparently there's this whole situation where the Wayne board doesn't trust Bruce Wayne anymore, and apparently he's going to have to step back from his company, and it's going to be harder to secretly funnel money to Batman. So the Batman that needs to exist now needs to be a more stripped down and effective version of Batman, and not as big and extreme. We also get an introduction to Clown Hunter, hunting the people that were in Joker's army, but being violent and murderous. And then we get to sort of wrap up the status quo. He's talking to Catwoman, and the two agree that they need to take a little time off and figure out themselves, so they're going to go on a break for a year. This one is just a lot of, set up and put the stories in the places where they need to be. Really should have been an epilogue for Joker War. If you guys haven't read it, it's just, man, getting through a lot of, spring cleaning, it feels like. So, yeah, it's okay, but really not the best way to start off a new book. Would have been a cool way to finish off another one. But yeah, just a whole lot of measuring the current status quo there. Not the best thing ever, and I was a little worried going into it. Anyway, after that, we get Batman 102 through 105, which is going to be the meat and potatoes, the main story of this book, the Ghost Stories arc. Now that being said, 102, 3, 4, 5, that's only 4 issues. The total book is 5 regular issues of Batman plus the annual and the bonus story. So there is a lot in here, but at the same time, your main story being only 4 issues, it does feel a little smaller and a little quicker. But that being said, we're coming off the big Joker War story. I think the idea here is not to feel exhausting. So tell a story that takes place only over the course of, like, say, 2 days. It's more personal with one villain. I get kind of the structure here, but that being said, yeah, the main plot is only 4 issues. But props to DC for not doing one of those 4-issue trade paperback things. But anyway, we get this guy being hung upside down. He's being interrogated, and he says, "Oh, I know you bat types. You don't kill." And he goes, "I'm not with them." And this is where we get Ghostmaker, the new enemy for this plot arc, who, well, he's killing that guy, so I guess he's literally making a ghost. After that, Batman's fighting some of Joker's thugs, but it turns out he's not looking for Joker, he's looking for Clown Hunter. More on him in a second. But he's also talking to Oracle, and Oracle, in addition to helping Batman out, she also is talking about where does she serve the city best. Is she better as Oracle or Batgirl? She's really good at what she does here, but, you want to be out on the street, so I do like that sort of thought going through her head. But anyway, Batman gets inside and finds that a lot of the Joker's henchmen are dead, and while at first Oracle thinks it might be Clown Hunter, the killer left a mark to tell Batman exactly who did it, and it's someone else entirely. After that, we get a few scenes with Harley Quinn, and she is trying to turn over a new leaf, and she's getting a new apartment. We've had for quite a while this arc where Harley Quinn breaks up with the Joker, and then she starts to, become a better person, and it seems like now she might be finally trying to get to the right side, and, I do think, why this is definitely in part because of the character's popularity, and you want to make her more of her own thing and have her be a hero so you can root for her more. I see why they did it from a business standpoint, but in the story, we'll get Harley legitimately talking about where she is now, where she used to be, seeing bits of Harley Quinn, Harley Quinzel, the psychiatrist, and I do think she is really fleshed out here, and having her be someone who turns her life around is an interesting story for her to go down. But of course, Clown Hunter is watching her. She was present when the Joker killed his parents all these years ago, and he plans on killing Harley Quinn. However, the assassination attempt is stopped when Ghostmaker shows up to kill this guy because, you know, he's literally about to blow up an apartment. That's a major crime. Now, there is a weird thing where Clown Hunter and Ghostmaker are both violent vigilantes who kill who that Batman disagrees with. It's kind of odd that they don't further that comparison, you know, they don't call Clown Hunter a young Ghostmaker, but that maybe he is kind of a young kid and Ghostmaker's too cool to be associated with him, I don't know. But of course, Batman stops this and we get some fun action sequences. The two are locked in a fight there, and he's going to tell Clown Hunter to go away. And, of course, he doesn't just leave. He is going to try to do what he set out to do. He's going to try to kill Harley Quinn, and that's where we get a lot more of Harley in the story, her talking and rationalizing with this kid. And also, you know, it's a young kid with this crazy get-up on. Harley is going to kind of put him in his place a little bit and tell a few jokes at his expense, and I do like, you know, the story does realize that Clown Hunter is kind of a silly designed character, and, you know, they will kind of go, oh, what are you, a teen? You don't realize how bad you smell, do you? You know, so they'll throw a few jokes in there. But anyway, Batman is fighting Ghostmaker, but we get a flashback, and it turns out that these two knew each other way back in the day. This is when Bruce was out there learning all the skills he could, and Ghostmaker was someone he ran into because Ghostmaker was also learning all the skills he could and visiting the same masters, and they were rivals. They had differences of opinion, you know, violence and should you keep your humanity, stuff like that. But even though they were rivals, it is kind of funny to think that this person is really the closest thing Bruce ever had to a friend during this time, which I did think is interesting. You know, I do like going back to this period in Batman's life and seeing what a best friend would be for him during that time. It is pretty fun, you know. But from there, we do get some action sequences, and we get a lot of Ghostmaker trying to make Batman see things from his point of view. And I do also like, this is that flashback scene I showed earlier, throughout the different flashbacks with Ghostmaker, depending on the point in his life, he'll have different costumes. And even when we flash back far enough, we'll see before he put on the mask. So it is really fun to see that character changing and getting a bigger and better costume. But of course, the testing and stuff like that, and fun, crazy action scenes building to a final battle with this character, and a way the story ending that you wouldn't really expect, but an interesting end to this story as well. Anyway, after that, Batman Annual number 5. This is the Clown Hunter origin story, which I kind of wish we got earlier. I mean, yeah, the Joker killed his parents, that's really all we need to know. But, you know, it is kind of odd that we go through this whole plot, and then we finally get this piece. But that being said, it does come after, and there is references in here that do spoil the events of the story, which I will skip for you guys. But don't read this first, even though part of me wishes it had come out first. But we get Dr. Tompkins on her way to her clinic, and she has to go through Crime Alley, and I do like, you know, the artwork in here, because, I mean, it's a Clown Hunter story. You want it to be more, you know, grungy punk art, and you see the way Batman's depicted, like a big pile with these two pointy ears, and how I really like when Thomas Wayne gets shot, instead of blood coming out, it's a bunch of bats that shoot out of his back. So Tompkins is reflecting, because she literally has to walk past that on her way to work each day she comes in. Really cool reds and greens too. We get this fun bit where someone tries to rob her, and then another person living on the street says, "Hey, that's Dr. Tompkins. Don't mess with her. She helps the community," and sends the guy away. So that's a fun bit, and it really shows what impact she's having. But anyway, she hears a loud crash, and it turns out that a bloody ghost maker is going to show up and ask for her help, and he says that Batman sent him here, says that they should talk, and we do get the flashback, him being a young kid, innocent, playing games, and arguing with his mom. Turns out they own a faux restaurant, and Harley Quinn, because, you know, like I said, she was there that night, is going to walk in to the family's restaurant with the Joker, and they're going to have dinner there after one of their crimes. Well, Harley leaves, and the parents are like, "Hey kid, stay back," and they tell the Joker, "Food's on the house," and he, of course, rather than just taking their kindness, tells a joke. "How about a tip then? My tip is don't breathe." And his parents don't make it. They can't hold their breath long enough, and they get killed by Joker toxin, leaving only the young kid there. But when the Joker War broke out, he gave up faith in Batman and that anything would be done, and he has to go out there on his own. And really, in the initial bit, you do get to see that, yeah, he started out just defending himself, which you can't really complain about, but it definitely went way too far towards the end. But let's cut off that story there. Afterwards, the Detective Comics 1027 segment, and we get this story, and, you know, there is a street punk art style in the last one. This one is going to have a very, very loose art style. This takes place in the Dick Grayson Robin era, and we can see just how loose and flowy it is. It turns out the superhero Deadman has called them over, and he briefly possesses Robin to talk to Batman, and we see this flowy artwork with Deadman jumping between them. But he says that there's a villain called, I think it's Soul Collector, who is grabbing up people's souls and using them as food, so he wants to team up with Batman, literally possessing him, and the two working together as one to try to stop Soul Collector from going after all these ghosts. And then, of course, we do have the more heartfelt and sentimental side to this story, where we flash back to young Bruce Wayne talking with his mother about ghosts and asking if ghosts are real, and she has this thing about, well, even if ghosts aren't real, if you remember your loved ones, then they're with you for always. But that being said, there are literally ghosts in the story, so I don't know how well that balances. But yeah, the weird cartoony artwork may not be for everyone, but this is a bonus story, so yeah, what are you gonna complain about, you know? It might as well shove this in here, because this story is literally called Ghost Story, and it is written by James Tynion, the same artist as earlier. I mean, the same writer as earlier, rather. But that being said, I think they just put it in here because the titles happen to match. Ghost Story, Ghost Stories. But that being said, nothing really to do with each other, just a coincidence that the titles work together. So yeah, I don't know 100% about that. Anyway, let's slide the slipcover back on. But yeah, overall a good story. Ghostmaker, a pretty fun villain, and I did like that he knew Batman back in the day, and I do like it was a more smaller personal thing. And now that being said, trying to stop Clown Hunter, I always felt that Clown Hunter was kind of a character with a ridiculous costume, but you know, with Harley there to put him in his place, okay, that's fine. A little bit too much flashbacks to that kid from Deadpool 2, but whatever. Overall, still a good volume, and I would, you know, recommend it knowing that it is, you know, a smaller, more personal episode. I am looking forward to, I do have the next couple of the Tinyon run, as well as a few other Batman books, so I am hoping to cover a lot more Batman going forward. But yeah, a fun book. I hope this review wasn't too crazy long, and I hope the chapters help you skip to where you want to go. Hopefully I remember to put the chapters in. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. If you guys want to see me talk about more stuff related to this, I'll put a relevant playlist on the bottom. This will probably be my DC Comics playlist, where you can see me talk about other DC stuff. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.